so much. I know it's a little stressful. You know, I'm waiting on a whole bunch of stuff coming down alongside you. We're now awaiting the Supreme Court's ruling on whether same-sex couples nationwide have the equal right to marry. However the decision comes down on the marriage issue, one thing's undeniable. There has been this incredible shift in attitudes across the country. The marriage equality is about our civil rights. And our firm belief that every citizen should be treated equally under the law.
You know, the case Obergefell v. Hodges started out purely with my late husband John and I wanting to commit to each other and to have our government acknowledge our existence. The driving force behind filing this lawsuit was a sense of dignity and a sense of respect. We wanted our marriage to matter. That was the moment when my activism was born. But it's also the moment that I realized this is a lawsuit that could have much greater impact outside of just our marriage. And that realization that this fight for our marriage was a fight for all marriages across the nation.
I think most of the nervous energy that morning kind of came from, you know, what if the Supreme Court went the wrong way? You know, we were on kind of the verge of a massive leap forward in civil rights and human rights in America.
We were in the Chief of Staff's office having our normal morning meeting when my assistant rushed in at a few minutes after 10 with a note saying that the marriage equality decision had come down 5-4, ruling in our favor. And I screamed out to everybody, guess what? The decision has come down. The Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, said, well, since your responsibilities included fighting for rights for the LGBTQ community, you should go get to tell the president. He was upstairs in the residence working his eulogy for Reverend Pinckney, who together with 8 of his parishioners had been murdered in Charleston the week before. And so if you can imagine, it was just chaos. He was trying to finish his eulogy. Now he had to write a landmark speech about this incredible decision.
I was in that courtroom that day when Justice Kennedy would read his decision. And I realized, yes, he's saying we matter, we exist. I broke into tears. Of course, my first thought was, John, I wish you were here to know that your death certificate will never change, to know that you will always be my husband.
We tried to see if Jim could make it to the White House in time to come to the Rose Garden with the president, but it was just not going to be possible, so we had to track him down, get him on the phone.
After court ended, I turned around and had an interview with a CNN crew. And then someone said, Jim, you have a phone call. And they handed me a phone on speaker.
Hello?
Hi, is this Jim?
Yes, it is, Mr. President.
I figured when I saw you that we were going to be hoping for some good news, and we did. And I just wanted to say congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was your wishes.
You know, your leadership on this, you know, has changed the country.
I really appreciate that, Mr. President.
Looking back at that conversation with President Obama, he said that my leadership made a difference in our nation. And for me, I feel like I simply did what was the right thing to do in regards to my husband, in regards to living up to my promises to love, honor, and protect.
Progress on this journey often comes in small increments. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, propelled by the persistent effort of dedicated citizens. And then sometimes there are days like this, when that slow, steady effort is rewarded with justice that arrives like a thunderbolt.
When we first boarded Marine One, on our way to the airport, President Obama was still feeling jubilant from his remarks about marriage equality, but right away we started then thinking, well, what was coming next? And we had been to so many memorial services by that point for people who had been murdered through gun violence. And so, having given so many eulogies, he said, what more is there for me to say?
When Charleston happened, there's the convergence of a mass shooting and the racial hatred. I remember saying this, look, I want to go to the funeral and I want to hug the families. I don't think I want to talk. I don't know what else to say. I feel as if I have run out of words because I've been doing this too much and it doesn't seem to have any impact on me. And I don't want to perpetrate this notion that somehow this is normal.
You know, over the weekend, the families of the victims all forgave the killer in open court, which I found extraordinary. And the president seized on it and said, look, if I speak here, this is what it's going to be about. It's going to be about the concept of grace.
This whole week I've been reflecting on this idea of grace. The grace of the families who lost loved ones. The grace that Reverend Pickney would preach about in his sermons. The grace described in one of my favorite hymnals, the one we all know.
Just before we got off the helicopter, the president stood up and then said, you know, he'd added the lyrics to Amazing Grace to the speech the night before. And he said, you know, if it feels right, I might sing it.
When he said he was going to sing, I said, that sounds like a great idea. And Mrs. Obama said, well, you be you.
As he paused and kept saying grace, what came next, the world definitely was witness to.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
When I played the first note behind President Obama, my mind immediately went back to the first time I ever touched the piano and know what it really meant to let the Lord guide me and lead me in that endeavor.
Certainly as President of the United States, your words can move markets, your words can move armies. So for him to, you know, get up and sing and show emotion like that, you know, I think was important, not for him, but for the country. He always stepped up to be the healer in chief, but more than that, to actually push us somewhere better.
It was their strength, not my strength, that I was relying on. It was their grace that then bathed me in grace.
So when we got back, I do remember there was one of those extraordinary sunsets. I remember him being very moved with that.
A few weeks earlier, One of my staff, Aditi, had come to me with this idea that originated with Jeff Tiller, who worked in the press office.
What if we lit the White House in rainbow colors? And importantly, what if we made a commitment to do it regardless of how the Supreme Court ruled? Regardless of whether they ruled it as constitutional or unconstitutional, our government will send a message to the community and to the world that we value LGBT people and that we are on the right side of history. And Valerie took a second and she looked at me and she said, I think that's a phenomenal idea.
I couldn't have thought of any other way to better demonstrate change than through changing the color of what is an iconically recognized building the world over. As the sun went down, it became this brilliant popping color of the rainbow.
Outside of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, there were just throngs of people. And I can only describe it as reverie. We were speechless. And it was so beautiful and touching. I can never talk about it without getting choked up as I am right now. I couldn't be more grateful than I am for that moment.
I think the fact that so many people came out to see it and that photograph still is as real for people as the day that we first did it, just tells you how important symbolism is.
Here was this incredibly visible sign that not only did we belong, not only were we equal under the Constitution when it comes to marriage equality, we had a president, we had an administration who clearly said, you belong, we want you, we care for you, we protect you.
There's so much more work to be done to extend the full promise of America to every American. But today we can say, in no uncertain terms, that we've made our union a little more perfect.